Hello, hello. Welcome back. Danny on Everything. 2020, new year, new decade. Our 21st episode. Big deal. Here as always at beautiful Alcom in Tallahassee, Florida. Got a lot of guests today, a lot to talk about. Like I said, it's a new decade. It's a new year, new stuff going on. Speaking of new stuff going on, still got my new album, just released recently, released in December or something like that. Lucine and Arev, you can buy it through my PayPal. It's info@DannyBedrosian.com. Check it out. Send, I believe it's $20 domestic or $40 international, and you get a free gift and signed copy. Also, the comic book is still out. Same prices for that. Sons of the Sun. Check it out. And in sort of celebration of the 10th anniversary of Secret Army album Monster Piece, we're going to play some of that stuff on Sith and Synth today. That's right, it's a Sith and Synth day. With me as always, Karl Cerny, my fearless producer, and he's actually in shot right over here. His wife Sarah taking care of the technical duties from behind the scenes, as it were. And also with me as sometimes Mr. Travis Thigpen, our resident Star Wars expert, Star Wars enthusiast, Star Wars critic, because you can't truly be a fan without also being a critic. You know. Is that true? Travis Thigpen. And also, for the first time on the show, Mr. CJ Bruner. CJ is a personal trainer and originally from Tallahassee, lives here now, and is also a Star Wars enthusiast, has played the video games, has read some of the comic books, and so is able to transmit his thoughts and opinions about this as well. So we have the full panel talking Star Wars and Star Wars stuff today. Before we get to that, though, I have a few tour dates I want to throw out there. George Clinton and Parliament Funkadelic. We will be at the Riverside County Fairgrounds in Indio, California on February 15th. And also be on the lookout for tour dates in April, May, and June, including a European tour. Also, I wanted to announce Chop House dates, my classical solo piano shows, Friday, February 7th, Saturday, February 8th, Friday, February 21st, Saturday, February 22nd, Friday, March 20th, Saturday, March 21st, and Friday, April 3rd, and Saturday, April 4th. So, without further ado, and again, playing synth music from my 5th album, Monster Piece, celebrating the 10th anniversary of that album and the synth music therein, we return to you with more Sith and Synth. I get more kind of crazy every time I say that, and it's going to get weirder and weirder as I go. So the next time we do it is going to be... And
I just noticed, though, you don't have the synth.
I don't have the synth today. We're going to play synth music. I want to be engaged because we have so much going on in the Star Wars world. So, I want to go...
give CJ the full experience. He's normally back.
Playing a synth, yes, playing one while we're talking. That does happen, and it will probably happen next time. So I want to get started with chronological by release talk. The Mandalorian came out on Disney Plus on, was it November 16th? Is that correct? Something like that?
I already blocked that date out of my head.
Okay, it's something like that. It was I believe synonymous with the release.
November.
Was it something like that? And has run the full course of the first season, and we have all seen the whole season. I wanted to start with this sort of in a I've got good news and I've got bad news. But that's only half facetiously though, because starting with The Mandalorian though, that certainly rings true in that I personally and I want to go around the table and get everybody's thoughts, but I feel that it is just my opinion, just my thoughts, the best Star Wars thing since Return of the Jedi for me. and that I've enjoyed thoroughly. Everything about it, everything that relies on all the stuff we're like, oh, that's just for the fans. I love all that stuff. I eat it up. I eat up the devil guy that was with the troop that was running around. Spoiler alerts. Blah blah blah. We always talk about that.
Yeah. If you're worried about spoilers, this is not the episode.
This is not. Yeah, exactly. And I just love all the stylistic things. I eat all that up. I was really into the multiple directors. I dug this direction style of every director that came in. Every single one. I liked how they differed because the consistency they held together was Favreau and Filoni, who I think in a lot of ways this is kind of their best, and I mean kind of both of them in a way. I think this is Favreau's finest hour in terms of writing, and I think this is Filoni's breakout period into non-animated stuff that signals a welcome change in the Star Wars fan universe. And so that being said,
How did you feel going into it?
Good. Okay. Good. Yeah, I wasn't enthused.
Let me ask some questions here. Yeah. Cause
I wasn't enthused. I'll admit it. In fact, I was the same way I felt about Guardians of the Galaxy when that came out. I was like, this is gonna be stupid.
When you said going into it, you mean before you saw the first episode?
Yeah.
You saw it?
Travis was very enthused.
I was hyped.
I was not.
Back when it was still like a Boba Fett
either.
rumor. Oh, like just you didn't know anything. Okay. Gotcha.
I didn't feel any kind of way about it. I was
felt
like,
TV was the way that Disney needed to go. Like the movies, you just don't have enough time to get into a character and really get their thoughts, their feelings, how they
First time I've heard
react.
someone say
Yeah.
that.
So TV, you get in this case 8 hours. Yeah, almost, I guess. Because they did all those 30-minute
30
episodes.
to 40 minutes an episode.
Yeah, but you get so like 6 hours worth of character time and development, and you go on the journey with said person.
Yeah.
You know, like. But yeah, you just.
But you know what though? A lot of times that's a good thing for me when I go, because I such low expectations after Last Jedi.
That's Sarah's approach to all movies. You just
You
set your
know,
bar real low, and then you
just-
can't be disappointed.
You can't be
Exactly.
disappointed. And we're gonna get to
Almost a good role for life.
we're gonna get to the politic of that when we talk about.
I'm a Dolphins fan. All right.
When we talk about what is it called? The Skywalker's Revenge? Skywalker's...
The Ride.
The Rise of Skywalker. I don't mean to diss it because I do have good things to say about that, but we'll get to that in a bit. Mandalorian, sticking with that, I just want to say again, stylistically beautiful. The characters gorgeous. The writing is good. I liked the acting was good. The action was good. The special effects, everything I liked about it. I don't really have any complaints. And again, much like Guardians of the Galaxy, I went in like this is gonna be whatever. I don't care. Nick Nolte, none of this enthused me. I wasn't
Everything
enthused.
I told him, like Karl Weathers is gonna be there.
I don't care. I'm not interested. And Carl Weathers went on to be like one of my favorites on the show. Like, really
Not even
great.
Werner Herzog, man.
Yeah, well, it's out.
Like I didn't care
of
about
course.
any of it, but then I
Of
saw
course.
him, and I'm like, all right, I'm in now. If
Yeah.
that dude's in it, it's gonna be nuts. So
Yeah.
I'm
I liked all the cameos on it too. They were
Yeah.
all great.
Yeah.
I was really surprised with Bill Burr.
Yeah, I am not a Bill Burr fan.
Well, I
am.
But when I heard he was going to be acting, I was kind of like, I don't know. I've never actually seen
him
that
act,
that I can
yeah.
think of. But I thought he did a really good job.
No, he was
I really liked
awesome.
it, yeah.
That's one of my favorite episodes too.
Yeah.
Yeah, it
Might
was,
be
it
my
was.
favorite episode. I'm not sure. It might be.
With the brother and sister,
Yeah.
the Twi'leks.
Yeah, it's
That
probably
whole
my favorite
dynamic,
episode.
that was cool.
Yeah, that was awesome. Carl, thoughts, pros, cons.
It's definitely the first to capture the spirit of the original movies. I think, like you say, best thing since Return of the Jedi. Like I'm mostly with you on that. I think they definitely put a lot of effort and time crafting that sort of nitty gritty realism that Star Wars. Because you always had kind of the two competing camps where you had like all the space magic and then you had all of the technical ships and armies things and all that stuff, so it definitely focused more on that side of it, which is great because most of them don't. Most of them fall more on the Jedi and all that stuff, the more fantasy elements of it.
Except for the new series, new trilogy.
Well, I mean, we'll get into that in a second. 'Cause
Yeah.
there's a checklist. There's an invisible checklist that has to be had with everything new that comes out these days when it comes to that brand. So, like, you can't even really call the new ones movies. And actually, I got into this with a friend of mine. So, again, we'll save that for the movie talk. But the thing I like the most about it is that the people involved with it clearly want to make what they're making. Because the biggest problem with a lot of new Star Wars stuff is that the people who are making it, like it, I say to everybody, you just ask yourself, why was the thing made? So, like, you look at the original stuff, and it's like you had someone who wanted to tell a story, and then he made it happen, and then you had a crew around him that helped him make it happen. But he started with the idea that he wanted to tell a story. Whereas, like, with these new movies, you know, and a lot of the new Star Wars stuff, it's like you have Disney going like, all right, we need a new one, so go find someone to make it. And not to say that those people aren't talented.
The hot name.
Right, yeah.
You know, not somebody that, like, is truly passionate like Jon Favreau with The Mandalorian.
And I don't want to disparage, you know, like J.J. Abrams or anything like that, because, you know, a lot of talented people working on it. It's just like I watching the PR junkets for this last movie, and the actors look so miserable, and everybody's just like no one wants to be doing this, and it's like, well, that translates to me when I'm watching the movie, because I'm just like, everybody's like, they're only doing it because they have to, not because they want to. So
Contract,
yeah, you know, like so.
And they've all stated, not to get into the movie since we're on the Mando or whatever, but all the actors have stated, this is it, we're not coming back. Boyega, Oscar Isaac, Daisy Ridley, they've all said we're not coming back. Like, I mean, of course that will change when a check gets written 20 years down the line, but
all right. Yeah. But it, you know, like I don't blame them, because like, why put up with this? You could go do other movies. I mean, there's no. Anyway, so The Mandalorian, I feel like it definitely has that level of, like, you know, everybody involved is like, the scale is smaller, which I love. You know, we don't need planet destroying stuff. Just tell these smaller, simpler stories.
If I never see a planet blow up again,
I
in
tell
the
you
Star
what,
Wars
man,
universe,
and it's just so ridiculous.
So happy.
Like, look, we don't need to, you know,
Some form of Death Star in every movie.
Yeah.
So yeah, definitely like it has a lot of promise, and I feel like there's a lot of potential there for a lot of exploration. And because the problem with Star Wars has always been that it's like, if you're not focused on those like main Skywalker people, it's just like, well, what do you talk about, you know? Right. At least on a national scale, like not focusing on all the expanded material, but it's like, you know, for your general audience,
for lay people,
right? For the lay person, you know, people don't want to see all that; they want to see the Skywalker story. So, you know, like
true, or a certain actor, maybe.
Right. So then,
which you're not going to get in Star Wars. I mean, they don't normally bring in until the Disney
or a certain
era.
iconic character, a C-3PO.
Yeah.
CJ, thoughts on The Mandalorian? How did you feel about it in terms of?
I was definitely pleasantly surprised.
Yeah.
I think, like you, I had very little expectations going into it, and that always helps. You know, you ever expect too much, and it always ends up being garbage in your eyes at that point. But I really like the physicality in the fights in this. Like in the first episode, whenever he's going to get the Baby Yoda, there's a scene where he's right next to this door. It opens, the guy comes out and he pistol whips him. And I really appreciated that, because I can't recall that ever really being in any other Star Wars stuff. Most of the time it's just Jedi.
It's the Western feel of it.
Yeah, it's
the
got a real Western
Earp,
kind of.
A pistol whip.
That's
everybody.
a good point. Yeah, there's not a lot of punching or whatnot.
Right, and in this, they actually get a little more physical with each other.
True.
Now, also granted, the shock trooper that he runs into, that chick was actually like
a real
MMA fighter and everything.
Gina Carano. And the fact that they made her into a good actress, because she has a presence, and she's been known as that, but like her acting, like in one of her last movies, I can't remember the name of it, they actually dubbed over her with another actress's voice.
It kind of picks up as they
but
go.
She did really well in this. I was thoroughly impressed with her acting.
Yeah. Which speaks a lot to the director.
Yeah, and she credited Favreau and Filoni both. It just so much knowledge that she was able to get from them. None Keith, man.
It was definitely I appreciated that. Fights were better. I don't like it when things are fantastical necessarily in fight scenes. Like, I don't like the like Tom Cruise type Mission Impossible, Actual Impossible. I like a little, going there, particularly like around something like a Jedi would be able to do something inhuman,
Right.
But so yeah, I really appreciated the kind of grimy, more getting gritty with that. There was a couple things that were left unanswered in there, but I'm not too particularly torn up about it. In that episode, the gunslinger. So he shoots the chick in the stomach before he goes back to try and get Mando. Yeah. At the very end, someone comes and picks her up, but then it's never kind of resolved from there.
That's true. Maybe we're gonna see that in the next season, possibly. That's leaving that open for the greenlit next season, right?
Yeah, it will be released at the same time, late October, early November.
Yeah, because I had some questions too, for sure. I mean,
no, they've already started production on it and everything, and the reason that they did the multiple directors this season was because Jon Favreau already had obligations or whatever. He's going to be doing a lot more of the episodes next.
I kind of hate it for a single trilogy, but I loved it for this show. The multiple directors. Perfectly. For a single trilogy like what we just saw, not so much. But for a television show like this, and for it being their first new thing on Disney Plus, I was digging the different director every time. Like, there's such a nice stylistic shift, and it still felt consistent because you had Favreau and Filoni.
You can pull off different directors. You just have to have a showrunner, and that's the
exactly. Almost every show out there, from like The Flash on the CW. I mean, you get the Kevin Smith episode, and then you get the other guy. And
the original
like a
trilogy,
comic book kind of.
The original trilogy had 3 different directors too. So, I mean,
true. That's true.
You can do it. You just need to have someone who crafts a narrative that then crosses all of the movies.
Where was the campfire and everybody sitting around being like, "Well, this is the story that we
Which
need
is
to
the
tell."
most. That's the most baffling thing.
About this whole thing.
Well, it seems like we're already transitioning into the final trilogy. So let's start talking about it.
Well, hold on. There's so much more on the Mandalorian. You got so many cameos in there. Right?
Yeah. I want to say that I knew, as we were watching the Taika Waititi episode, when there's 2 stormtroopers, they're called the 2 most hated stormtroopers ever. I knew that it was Sudeikis, and I was like, and dude, that's the bird from regular show.
Oh, really?
The other one is that's because he was like, when he said one thing like, what's it look like anyway? He said this one thing, and I was like, oh, that's that bird, like, hey, and like I used to love regular show. And like that silly big blue bird.
I have to go back.
That's him. So it's Jason Sudeikis, and
which is amazing. The Jason Sudeikis guy on his Wikipedia now. You know this?
So funny.
It says that he punched Baby Yoda. It's like one of his career highlights or whatever. Things he's done in his career
funny.
or whatever.
I can't believe people actually sent them death threats.
Something like that. Yeah, I heard some crazy things about this whole. The people were pissed about that.
I actually love that scene.
I did too.
It was great. It was a great scene.
And it's made
them
to
shooting
make
at the
people
ground, missing the whole time.
It's
Like,
entertaining.
okay, they
It's
can't shoot with the damn.
It's really humorous without pulling you too far away from everything going on. I feel like, right?
I think it's also made to.
I think Taika's
appeal.
humor totally works in the Star Wars universe.
And I think it's made to appeal to the anger on purpose of the side of the fan base that has come onto this show 99.9% because of Baby Yoda. And I think it's sort of joking with them, and the ones who are tongue-in-cheek enough to see the joke are like, oh, that's messed up. That's messed up how you doing that to Baby Yoda. Oh, why are you doing that to me? When it's like, you know what I'm saying? Because I've seen this play out, and I think for the demographic that's like very much into the Baby Yoda thing, this was and it wasn't meant to quote-unquote piss them off. It was meant to sort of appeal to the emotions of that set in order to have them totally invested. And Taika Waititi is very clever and sly, but in a very facetious way. So it's kind of like, oh, you see that he's pulling this trick on you, and he's showing you the trick. You know what I mean? And that's his directing style.
The whole series has been making sure that you understand that no one cares about him except that, like, they're trying to set it up so that you feel like, oh, it's so weird that the Mandalorian cares this much about this child.
Yes.
Everyone's been a dick to Baby Yoda.
Yeah.
Everybody. I don't understand why all of a sudden now we're picking up like this is the hill we want to die on, because it's like it's been happening the whole time, like, and it's not real. It's not.
Right, it's not
Well,
really.
real child. Don't set a
They
difference.
hit an empty bag in the scene. You know,
Yeah,
you don't
yeah.
actually see him ever actually hit the baby. So.
And spoiler alert, Yoda's not a living creature.
Yeah.
This is a. I
didn't
hate to
sound like a
break.
baby.
I hate to break this to the people
Right,
out there. It's
exactly.
either a puppet
Right, so
or
you're going to send
animatronic.
death threats to a real human being over a puppet being. Ah, man,
A real human being who
and again,
plays
the
an
puppet
actor.
probably wasn't even in
Wasn't
the
a
bag.
voice. I don't want to
Voiceover.
damage the
Bag.
puppet.
So funny.
I really like that scene though. It gives a little character
I do
to the scout troopers, but the stormtroopers in general.
I like how they're
always are
sitting.
so emotional.
I like how they're sitting, how they're kind of like waiting.
Yeah.
Yeah, and
it
like
shows
kicks
them
over
in
the
resting.
bike.
They're bored.
I like how they can't shoot the thing. Like they still can't shoot. And like I like how he shakes the gun. It sounds like a,
There's something rattling around in it. Yeah.
A couple batteries.
It sounds like a toy. He just shakes it around. It just sounds like a piece of. And that is just such a great. I like how they make things. The Empire's gone, so this stuff is all old. I just like, yeah, everything's repurposed. I love Queel. I love his name is like aesthetically pleasing to say, Queel, and you just hear him, Queel, do you read me? You know, like it's great. There's so many aesthetic things I love about this show, and that's what I fell in love with it right away. I didn't.
The opening scene just
Right from the
grabs
top.
you.
Yeah.
I mean that whole, the whole
From start to
western.
finish of that first episode, and I gotta say, I was already enjoying it, but that very last little scene where he kind of puts his finger down and you see
Oh
the
my goodness.
little fingers come up, I was like hooked there. I was like,
Yeah.
oh man, that's
Yeah, that was everything.
precious.
Yeah.
In my feels.
Yep,
over
yep.
there.
So for
I do have to ask though. Okay, so you're left at the end of season 1 with the armorer. I don't think she has a name yet. She says to him, basically you're his father now.
yeah,
He is a foundling.
yeah.
So he's part of the Mandalorian, code and everything. If he gets taught by the Mandalorian, how to be that. By like say the end of season 2, we have little baby Yoda with a little mini jetpack and a little mini lightsaber.
Yoda Fett.
A little Yoda Fett. Are everybody on board for this? Cause I am.
Yodalorian.
Well, how long?
Yodalorian.
How long is it actually going to take? Because he's 50 years old and he's still.
Hey, he might make a massive
You know what I
leap
mean?
at
Yeah.
50 to 60.
Yeah.
But the Mandalorian's basically his first dog. That guy's going to be dead before he's a teenager.
Well, there's something that I don't know if it's a comic that they just released or something, but I was seeing little bits and pieces of some people talking about it. That Yoda was teaching almost at the same time that this kid is experiencing all this in the
They
Mandalorian.
said he's not a clone, right? And they
No,
said-
he's definitely not a clone. They were trying to clone him.
Right. True. Yeah.
He's definitely of the species, and that's the thing. I don't see them going and revealing in this series what Yoda's home planet is.
No.
What their species are.
No. Because you
all
had said
that
to me in the
stuff.
past that Lucas has stressed. Have you heard about this? That he doesn't ever want anybody to know this
The
is what you
name
said?
of Yoda's
the name of
species.
Yoda's race,
Yeah.
or
It's
where they're
always supposed
from,
to
or
be
what they are.
ambiguous or
That's
whatever.
cool. I like that.
Yeah.
That's great.
But since Disney's had it, they've pretty much said, "Oh, that's what Lucas wanted. Let's do the exact opposite."
Nice.
Like so.
And to segue into that, I wanted to throw in my idea for a new character. It came from the slip of Travis's tongue outside, and I said, for those who know Marvel Comics, Doug Locke was a character. When Doug Ramsey died, they scattered his ashes. When Warlock died, they scattered his ashes on Doug Ramsey's grave. And then during the Phalanx Covenant, they combined to become Doug Locke. I would like, after falling into the pit of Sarlacc, Boba Fett's magical Mandalorian armor to be thrown over the grave of Jabba the Hutt, and it to sink a la American Gods under the soil and form over Jabba's zombie-like half-decayed body, and for him to become Jabba Fett. Maybe the next Disney Plus show? I don't know.
He's available for optioning Disney.
He's
Just call him up.
available. And
Jetpack's gonna put some work in getting that thing off the ground.
I will say, I want to piggyback off your comment that you talk about Disney doing the opposite of Lucas. The one thing Disney respects, though, is if you make something successful. So, like, you look at the way the Marvel stuff was handled.
Yeah.
Once they realized, okay, they know what they're doing. As long as they're making money, we don't care. They gave them that reign to do
Leave
what they
them
want.
to it, yeah.
Right. So now that this show has seen popularity, you have to wonder, okay, will they follow that same, blueprint of Favreau clearly has created something. Baby Yoda's a phenom.
Yeah.
Everybody loves him.
Yeah.
Whether or not it's good or not is irrelevant. That's not what we're after. We're after the popularity, the merchandise, all that stuff. So this clearly has had that. This clearly has had it. So then you got to wonder, well then, because you talk about season 2.
Yeah.
Like, I'm excited more for that than I am for this one, because it's like, well, this is a good launching point. We've established we can handle this. So now where do we go from here? And that's how I felt, actually, honestly, talking about the new trilogy movies, at the end of Force Awakens, where it's like, okay, it was bland, but it was safe, and it's a nice launching point. Where do we go from here?
Yeah.
But
Yeah,
obviously-
question.
Right, exactly. The
Yeah.
direction, because it's like there's a lot of potential for the characters, a lot of potential for those performances, and so you're left wondering, okay, well, will it be allowed to expand creatively? It's never how you start.
Yeah.
It's how you develop.
True.
So,
Well, and I gotta say, the way that and everybody knows me and my affinity for Darth Maul,
Yeah.
and his one-time ownership of the Darksaber. So
Right.
to see that, I'm more than hyped for season 2.
I knew that there was a whole set of
Once
fans.
that
I'm like, the
happened.
Darksaber!
The
The
Darksaber!
Darksaber!
Oh
I'm
my
like,
God.
oh goodness.
Oh my god!
I knew it
I
was
texted
not.
you immediately. I'm like, the Darksaber.
If anything is fan service, that they talk about fan service, that scene is fan service.
It wasn't overdone though.
No, it wasn't overdone. It wasn't overdone.
And he had a reason to pull it out.
Yes,
he had
he
to
was
get out
on
of the wreckage.
Well,
Well,
and
and apparently
he was on
he's
that
the
planet.
moth that
He's
took
the-
care
he
of
was the governor
the
during
purge of the
on
Mandalorians.
Yeah.
Which I think we're gonna get a lot more of that in season 2. I think that's a really interesting storyline. How
I do
did they
too.
get targeted at the same time as the Jedi purge?
Yeah, especially when they were so averse to what the Jedi was on and the Empire. They were on their own whole different. Yeah, so that'll be
have y'all read
interesting to see
the Enemy of the Empire, the Dark Horse Boba Fett comics?
how- Yeah, I read the Boba Fett comics.
Yeah.
Yes,
So-
I read
so
the Dark Horse one.
They
yes.
explore a lot of that
They
territory,
do,
which is
and,
great.
And it's similar to the show. The Boba Fett comic is
Yeah.
in places.
Like it's
it's-
definitely Favreau was using them to like inspirationally, which
Yes.
is fine. I'm glad that it's not both. Like I want new stuff.
Yeah,
so
yeah.
I'm
True.
perfectly
Me too,
happy.
I'm
with
fine
Well, this
with
was
that.
supposed to be Boba Fett.
It was originally.
I right
yeah.
to say, and I love that they took it in the direction they did, because then
Yeah.
it's just like, well, this is great because now we don't have I don't need Boba Fett's origin story. I want something. I want to see people again expand creatively, but like if he becomes the antagonist of the series, I'm 100% in on that, because that actor I love. I'm talking about Gus Fring or I can't remember his name right now, but
Pedro Pascal.
yeah. So like if he becomes like he's hunting him throughout the show, I like that more than the Guild being after him as like sort of that constant threat.
I like the Guild being sort of neutral, not neutral, but not protagonist, not antagonist. This kind of crappy little union that they really like, that Carl Weathers is always promoting. Like I love.
Let's be real. The guild is dead.
Carl Weathers killed
probably-
it, by the way. Carl Weathers' best acting ever, because he really turned me around in my interest for him, as my vested interest in him as a watcher. And something more to your last point, Carl, that I do want to say, and I want to move on from there because I knew we were going to get like this on The Mandalorian. But as someone who's into creative stuff, I respected the fact that Disney allowed Favreau to have the wherewithal to control when the merchandise would come out. But the father of a young child in me, who's shopping around the Christmas time, is amazed that this multi-billion-dollar, multi-trillion-dollar corporation, or whatever it is that Disney is, would have the wherewithal to do that. The side of me that's not creative, the side of me that's just looking at bucks, is dumbfounded, confounded, because I am walking through these Walmarts and these Targets and these malls, and I'm also seeing online people making their own Baby Yoda plushies and stuffies and all these different things, and making probably goo-gobs of money, and some of them are being sued. You can't sue everybody, but before you even see Baby Yoda in the first episode that we were talking about, when I was already hooked, like after that first scene, I remember thinking, just from the first scene, these toys are gonna be ridiculous. And I didn't even mean the popularity of them, I really meant they're gonna look incredible. Because of the use of those scarlet and maroon colors that you were finding all up in these characters' armor and the way they, I
want the art.
They're gonna be, yeah, the art's awesome.
Before we're
It's
over,
incredible.
but art at the end, I want that.
I said but I said those toys are gonna look incredible and fall off the just disappear off the shelves,
which Disney has failed at consistently since they have owned the Star Wars brand,
Yes.
which is the biggest reason you buy Star Wars.
They put out the toys when there is no movie. They don't put out the toys in
and
time
no one
when
buys
there
them.
is a
They're just
movie.
sitting there for like $2.
They haven't. The toys haven't been doing as well.
No, they haven't. But with
So that
something,
might be why they agreed to not do.
Well,
no, but
No,
that was
it
a
was-
mistake. That was a huge mistake.
It was
because
Donald Glover. You heard this?
No.
The whole reason, so Baby Yoda was going to be PR'd to death leading up to the series, and
Yeah.
when Favreau and Donald Glover were working on The Lion King, Donald Glover's like, you should keep it a secret. Don't tell anybody about it. Let it be that big surprise. So Favreau basically hid it from everybody
Including the
until
studio.
including that. So it was Donald Glover who did that, because they said the headline that I saw that made me laugh was, you have Donald Glover to blame for the fact that there's no Baby Yoda merchandise.
And what's funny too is that
Yeah.
it's not even necessarily.
kept it a secret.
It's 100% what you should
that
do,
was genius.
because like
It is genius.
from a
but
PR perspective.
but
It's perfect.
Not even just necessarily Baby Yoda that I see as being formidable in terms of the market. As like I said again, as a father, and I have a daughter, but even if you had sons and ones that are even a little bit older, looking at these action figures, I have to say it. It is 1,000,000% true. This is where the action figures placed at the right time would have done exceedingly well. I understand why they didn't do it, and for creative reasons, I'm happy and proud of Favreau and all of that. So don't take that away from my opinion. But I have to say, the marketing man in me is just looking at like the boys, the young boys, and a lot of girls would have bought goo-gobs of this in the Lego variety. The action
and
figures.
you started right at there, and that's why they didn't do it, because everything that pretty much Marvel
Spoilers.
and Disney has done, Lego has screwed up
Because of spoilers?
months before.
With spoilers.
Yeah, releasing
No.
stuff that
and
they
I said
shouldn't
that.
have
That's why I
released.
prefaced it by saying the creative person in me, blah, 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 blah. But just from a marketing standpoint, the action figures would be crazy. Yes, the Yoda stuff would be a whole separate billion-dollar enterprise. But I also think the action figures, video games, and Legos and all that other stuff would sell so much better than any of the last movies, including the prequels. And the prequel Lego stuff did pretty well. I think this stuff would do even better.
Man, you got another 850-year timeline at minimum of Baby Yoda.
Yeah.
Think about that.
Yeah.
I mean, he's like 50 years old.
Yeah.
Our Yoda, what, it was like 900, 800,
900,
young adult Yoda.
Dude, you get so much. I mean,
Well, you think about it too. It's the same thing they did with Groot, and they figure it out. Well, this is how you create your continuing merchandising.
Yeah, the
you
baby
create that
make him
character.
even cuter.
Make him cuter. Make it not tied to an actor, so that way you can just keep pumping them out. Like it's again from, like you say, from the merchandising perspective.
Yeah, just from a merchandising perspective, and again,
Which is the key reason
because
why
I'm
I'm not
shopping
into
at
Star Wars
Christmas
anymore.
Yeah, and
Just
shopping
kidding.
for Christmas as a parent, even like just what's there, what's falling off the shelves. People are on their phones googling Mandalorian action figures. Parents being like, "There's no way they didn't put these out." No, really, and they really, really expecting them for their kids, for their loved ones, their spouses. I mean, across the board. And again, I applaud Disney, but it's outside of their character. Moving on, speaking of Disney, let's talk about the end of this trilogy. And we've all seen it, again, much like The Mandalorian. And I'm going to start, because I'm selfish. And I want to say that three of us, CJ and Travis and myself, went and saw it together. And we all have different opinions, but I think we also all have a lot of stuff in common with regards to this movie. I have to say that using a much maligned previous movie as a scale to base it upon is not necessarily the criteria you want to use. However, I'm going to use that because that is the last thing I tasted in my mouth before going in. Actually, the last thing I tasted was The Mandalorian, and so I really had lost all necessary vested interest that I had left from whatever trappings of The Force Awakens that I remember before getting into Episode 8. But seeing 9, I have to say that the way I felt about 8 was that it started almost promising and it just got terrible. This one started almost terrible and then it got promising. So for me, it was like kind of the opposite of how I felt about 8. That being said, there were some things, especially in the first quarter of the movie, where I was like, CJ was listening to me, I was like dying laughing when they're like the festival and like the alien Macarena and they're like, I was just like, no! I was dying, and I was like, I had to stop myself from laughing because
I think you
was
leaned even over.
yeah, I was like, I was tickled, and I think at one point I even heard CJ chuckle, and that made me laugh even harder because it was like, somebody else thinks this is funny too. Like, this started to feel bad because I'm like, this is so dumb, this is so funny. And the way it moved at the beginning, the direction and the way that it felt as a movie was jagged, funny.
You got a 5-minute montage of Kylo Ren cleaning up basically The Last Jedi.
Which felt like Starship Troopers to me. And as Travis had mentioned before, the worst opening crawl of all time. I thought it was terrible too. I remember seeing it be like,
Karl,
this opening crawl is
the opening
terrible.
crawl?
That was cool.
It was so bad.
You were with us, so I don't know your
what's
opinion.
What's the first thing they said? What
The one that got me
no,
when I
it's
read
the-
Kylo rages across the galaxy.
No, but that's
I
not
was
what
like,
bothered
who
me. It's
wrote
what they
that?
said before that. The very first
Well, they
line.
had Palpatine speaks or something.
A voice from beyond the grave? Like, wait a minute. Oh, we haven't even gotten into it. Like, I don't like when
Palpatine's
they get...
back.
Yeah, I don't like that. Okay, so there's a few things like that. That being said, there are some things I really loved, and it wasn't any of the stuff I expected. I expected to really love Return, as a old school fan, Return of old school characters. You do see Han, Luke, Leia, and Lando all in the same movie, albeit none of them are together. And they're not even really the highlight for me. Lando and Han's appearances did next to nothing for me. Luke and Leia, a little bit better. But what I really liked were silly things. The fan service for me is stuff like seeing Wedge Antilles, who said he would never be ever in a Star Wars movie. That little second was amazing for me. And me and Travis differ a little bit on this.
That's called a retirement check. It's the
Right.
same thing with Harrison Ford. Like I was saying,
He
how
didn't
big
even-
is that check to get?
He didn't even shave for it.
No,
He
he's
cut his hair.
His hair was all crazy.
He's like, I'll put on the clothes,
Like-
but that's it. I'm not doing anything else for this movie. I love it.
retirement home
That's where I
floating
laugh.
out,
I'm like,
you know,
oh
like-
man. It's so
He
good.
definitely looked a little unkempt.
Oh man, it was so beautiful.
But
A little scruffy.
Yeah.
A little scruffy.
another thing I liked, but Travis and I differ a little bit on this, but I do like it because it connects stuff that we know is connected, but that oftentimes powers that be try to force us to not connect together. And I like that you hear Qui-Gon's voice. I like that you hear different Jedi. Who do we hear? Ahsoka, Anakin, Leia, Yoda, young Obi-Wan. I like that it's young Anakin, even though I don't necessarily like that actor. I like that you hear his voice. I like that you hear these voices. To me, that brings validity to the feel of the movie. It's no longer just a fan movie to me. Because of that, they know the little things to do to make some of the diehard fans be like, okay.
It was what they
I
were
like
saying,
that.
though. It's not that they
I
used
know.
the voices. I'm fine with that. It's
I
the
know,
fact
it's
that
the
all of a
content.
sudden now every Jedi can channel into her, and and she can use their powers to overcome.
And conversely, every Sith is inside Palpatine.
And that's ridiculous too.
Palpatine, also Ian McDiarmid being maybe my favorite actor and character in the movie Star Wars franchise of all time.
Oh, he's great, yeah.
And it's kind of a wasted appearance.
Oh, yeah,
Even though
entirely.
he's great and he still did great and it's all good.
I thought he phoned it in.
No, I think he did great. It's kind of like Galactus in the Silver Surfer Fantastic Four movie where you never really get to see him for real. You're not really seeing him.
They should have gone farther
And
with it. He should have just completely hammed it up. Like,
Yeah.
I'm the same way. I love his whole like over the top performance.
Me too.
It's one of like probably on the very, very, very short list of the things in the prequels that I enjoyed.
Yes.
It's just
Oh, he's amazing.
crazy over the top. Like I love that, and it's like
Yes.
that's kind of what you want in that. Yeah, exactly. Darth Plagueis the Wise, which still makes me laugh. I love it. It's great. But like you want that sort of like again the over the top to kind of balance out all the grounded stuff. Man, like I mean, so there's a running joke. I think I'm not the first person to say this, but I think it's true. That J.J. Abrams was trying to cram as many of his friends into these movies as possible.
Oh, yeah.
To get him the merchandising rights and everything.
Right.
And he made a joke with what's her name, Felicity, who played the little visor lady.
Oh.
I would hazard that if like that most of the time wasn't her, it was probably a voice dub, and the only time you ever saw her was her eyes.
I know.
Because I bet you they made a bet where they were like, he's like, let's see how much money I can get you out of Star Wars versus screen time, like actual screen time. And you want it, so she's only on it when you see the little visor pop up.
Wow, and how much money she could get just from that one
She's gonna
appearance.
get she's on the
Which
back
is
end,
the
she's gonna
exact opposite of how things used to be in, not to sound like too much of an old man, in Hollywood in a way when it came to getting your friends. I just want to say this real quick, and then I want to ask CJ how you felt about the movie too, because you were sitting right next to me, and I want to hear your opinion too. But like back in the day, like when they did Home Alone, I had just heard that John Candy did his appearance on Home Alone. Maybe he was like the polka guy. He did his appearance because he was a personal friend of the director. They were good friends. They were good buddies. And he really ain't nothing phoned in about that. It's funny because I didn't really used to care about John Candy, but now that I'm watching it as an adult, I'm like, oh, he was really an artist. He really knew what he was doing. And he did it for just union extra rate. So he made $400 on Home Alone. And didn't complain. I just think that is so badass. Anyway, CJ, I want to ask you how you felt about this episode 9 overall and where you're at with it as the end of the trilogy.
It was better than The Last Jedi. But again, walking in there to compare that, the bar is on the floor. So the opening, the very first part, I really noticed the pacing problem. In the very beginning, it was almost like a kid with attention deficit disorder without his Adderall, you know what I mean? Just kind of all over the place. But then, when it kind of slowed down and caught up, I got a little more into it. It's like you were saying, it went from bad to better as opposed to the other one. I did like the fight scenes in this one a little more with the lightsabers. I actually got to see Kylo use his hilt at one point to block, making sense of it, you know?
Yeah.
Overall, I mean, there was a lot of fan service crammed into it. Not that I disliked it.
Right.
It just felt like it would have been better placed across two movies rather than the one. But I understand he had to make up for that. I almost feel like it would be better if you just
I was hoping you were going to say this.
disregarded Episode 8 completely.
This is the original guy that came up with the idea, for me anyways, where I first heard it, that when you see Finn wake up in The Last Jedi out of his little mini bacta suit or whatever, the whole Last Jedi movie was just a dream.
Just a dream in that suit.
Yeah,
That's
that he was
awesome.
having. So like,
That's
then it
amazing.
makes that movie
So
completely
if you
irrelevant.
just go from 7, pretend 8 is Finn's nightmarish dream in a bacta tank, into 9, I feel like even then it would just
They should
translate
re-release
better.
the movie digitally with the scene where he goes, when he wakes up in the thing. And
At the
just
very end. Yeah, just cut it and then just put it at the very
after
end.
the end credits.
clip it out.
Yeah.
What happened? And then go to black.
Yeah. Then cut to black.
That'd be amazing. All right, Travis, probably the most cynical of the four of us about this movie, although all of us have our definite problem.
I don't know. I
hesitations.
didn't get Carl's full opinion on it, so I don't know.
Go ahead. I mean, mine is. It was boring. I was bored most of the time. Like it's just it's a mess. And like when you like if I took.
I'm glad I let Karl go. I think me and him are
so-
going to be on the same page.
Okay, but like.
I agree too.
It's a mess.
huge
Like,
mess.
so if you took, talking about editing the movie, if you took and I clipped out all the things with Poe, Finn, Rey, basically everything that wasn't directly related to Palpatine, if I removed that, you could watch that movie and it'd be a complete movie. You don't need any of these other characters. Like, like when they go to like get the things, so they can do the things, they can do what, like it. Essentially, what you have is a chain of MacGuffins. Like they're going from one MacGuffin to the next to end up at the same place they'd have gone if they hadn't gone through all the MacGuffin nonsense to begin with. It's ridiculous. Like
It's a movie of convenience. I heard somebody say that.
Yeah, it is
on
convenient.
YouTube. Everything
It
is
is
just
convenient.
convenient.
Yeah,
Everything's
yeah.
just boom, set up perfect. If that festival wasn't happening that you hate so much,
I hate
That's
then
the thing,
Lando
like,
wouldn't have been
why
there.
was
then
Lando there?
You
What
know,
did
yeah.
he even do?
Yeah, is he partying there? Is he? He looks like he's moving through one of those convoys that they had in Iraq. Like, what is he doing at that festival? Like, you know, like the tanks with like the shutters. Like, what was he in? What's going on?
It was like a single tread tank. It was just like a tread.
totally wasted appearance
Right.
too.
And
I
you
feel,
just
the
you just
Lando
invented
appearance.
a reason to have Lando in
He
the movie,
was
and it's
so
like,
random. Even when he's like laughing and flying the Falcon, I just felt like that was so forced.
why not just have him show up there? Like have him show up then. Like
Yeah.
we don't need the whole. It's just
Yeah, it was a weird appearance.
you
Travis,
just cut it out.
what do you think? What do you think? Hit us with all the cynicism. That's why I have you on.
Well, for me, it was a very 50-50 movie. There was some things, but it was way too much fan service. Like, and I like that, you know, every movie you get a new force power, right? Yeah, that's always something.
You got
in this
20
guy.
in this movie.
You got 20 in it, like seriously, and some of it's fine, you know, like when she was holding the ship when she supposedly blew up, you know, which is another problem. So you
I laughed at that.
You-
And I'm not supposed to laugh when Chewie died.
yeah,
Sorry.
yeah.
Continue.
You supposedly killed Chewie, and then
Oh,
like
yeah.
20 seconds later, hey, Chewie's alive.
He's alive. Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Oh,
You know,
this-
like there was no time. I kept saying it to CJ. There was no time to breathe in this.
You know
movie.
what though?
You know, every time they did something, you were like, "Oh, that's significant." Boom,
Yeah.
it was already.
It's
like,
already
this-
solved, yeah. That'd be a
Solved,
whole movie.
explanation.
Yeah, yeah.
Anywhere
The
else.
explanation was too quick.
You know,
They should have waited a little
they're,
longer.
They're fighting the. Okay, so first off, through this whole series, no one knows who the Jedi are. Like who's you know, like you know, even Han was like, yeah, I thought they were BS back in the day too. Blah blah. You know,
They're
through
real,
the whole
yeah.
series and everything, and then all of a sudden the Sith come back. And everybody knows who the Sith are. Oh my God, the Sith fleet is here! You know, freaking out. You know what I mean?
Who
It's
knew
like,
that? Who was talking about it?
Everybody,
They were?
everybody on the Resistance,
were,
everybody
the
that
rebels
talked
were
about.
all-
I
the
mean, the
Resistance
First
were-
Order just immediately was like, "Oh yeah, the Sith. Okay, yeah, we're part of the Sith." now."
Well,
You
there
know,
was
like-
the general that he was part of
Yeah,
the Empire,
Price.
so he
Yeah.
remembers.
They
Yeah.
went as far as to outlaw the Sith language at that point.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean,
well, that was also
like
outlawed
if you
before.
really think about it,
Yeah.
the Sith had been gone for what, like a millennia or something like
Yeah,
that,
yeah.
you know, until they kind of showed themselves to the Jedi. No one else really knew about the Sith in the
Right.
in the prequel series, right? And then you get the OT, and Palpatine didn't reveal himself to the Empire that he was a Sith, so no one knew who the hell the Sith were.
Right.
You know what I mean? But then all of a sudden in this movie, it's like, oh, you speak Sith? You remember what's her face? The Katie Russell, Carrie Russell or whatever. She said that to one of the characters throughout the movie, like one point in the movie, like, "Oh, you speak Sith?" No one speaks
Because
Sith.
the C-3PO, it was the banned language.
Yeah, it's a
that he
dead
used.
language
Yeah,
too.
Like it was just so.
How about that? Not only is it like outlawed or whatever, it's dead. Nobody speaks it.
Yeah.
Nobody's alive to speak it. Like that's the real problem with
Like
that
you could,
issue.
you could explain away some of that by saying, well, like rumors disseminate after the Empire's fall with the Emperor and the way he was, and like he wasn't just like he was more than, like you could kind of explain away
Kind
some.
of, but like even the average guy's like, wait a minute, he might have been a Sith.
it's
There's
still-
people that were dead for 2,000 years. You know, like
Yeah.
Wasn't it explained as the average person doesn't really even see a difference between the Sith and the Jedi?
I mean, to certain people.
That would be a
Sure,
cool.
but,
That's a
like,
cool concept, honestly, because like your layperson doesn't like all they see is this religious mumbo jumbo between the two sides. They don't understand the differences. They just know I don't want a part of it.
And they know that if the Sith was the Empire, at least there was like a stability then. Whenever the Republics and
had
a job,
very easily reframe it to like I saw someone did a summary of the original Star Wars where they said a young boy is radicalized by an old hermit to commit an act of terrorism on a government installation, and I'm like, that's exactly what that movie is. Like, when you think of it that way, it reframes that whole narrative.
Yeah.
Okay, so one thing I want to bring up here, so you have Palpatine at the end, right?
Yeah.
He's using his Force lightning, right? Just powerful, just cackling and everything like
Should
that.
have used it more. He should have used
down,
it more.
Like what? Thousands of ships with Force lightning. Then he channels it at Rey, and she blocks it with a lightsaber. Like I got it. Don't worry about this. Whatever. And then she uses another one to X out the power and force it back on him.
The only argument.
What was the difference of that other lightsaber really doing it?
You like that?
I don't know.
I feel like the only argument that could be made against that is because spoiler alert, because she is his granddaughter, that she's got some equal Palpatine power to fight back.
So what?
But again though, like I never saw that as a Palpatine power. I saw that as
exactly. That's
a
like dark side power, and even in
once
the
you master
EU,
because anybody can throw lightning out of their hand. According to everything we've seen, I mean anybody can do it. You just have to be dark side enough.
Well, and you don't even. And in the EU, there is Jedi in the Old Republic that use a gold variant of the lightning or whatever. It was actually considered much weaker than the dark side one, but they could use lightning. And then you have like 3 different levels of lightning. You see in the Clone Wars series, the Son, the father, the daughter, the son. The Son uses red lightning.
Okay,
which is
interesting.
The most powerful or whatever. And then there's like a purple lightning that's like in the middle.
And is the red one dark side at all? It's not.
It's completely dark side.
Oh, it is.
The Son. You know what I'm talking about? The father,
the
Mortis,
whatever. Yeah. Okay, is the Son
so he's
dark
the
side
representation of the dark side.
Gotcha.
He's not Sith. He's just the dark side.
At the end of the movie, when the old lady or whoever it is asks, "What's your name?"
Yeah.
I wanted it to be Ray. What's your last name? Palpatine.
It was funny to me through the whole movie, right? Like everybody knew that she was a Palpatine, right?
Yeah.
Like Leia and all that. It was kind of implied and everything.
Oh, yeah,
Everybody's
yeah.
saying to her, "Embrace who you are. Don't worry about your past and da da da. Who you are is who you are." And then at the end, she chooses to be a Skywalker.
She chooses to call because to her,
Her only family was these
Her
people that she
metaphorical
barely
family,
knew for
her
like what, a month.
I know
Yeah. Like Luke, this
a guy
this,
that like wouldn't train her.
Yeah.
Well, how long was there supposed to have been between
It's a good question. How long is
The
there
Last
between
Jedi and
How much time?
Rise of Skywalker?
Wait, The Last Jedi and The Rise of Skywalker?
How much time is between them?
I think it was a year. Is what they
'cause it
said.
seems like some time has passed because they're already on a different planet. They're already doing something else.
It's about a
They've
year.
got a new crew together.
Yeah.
There was a baker's dozen of them left on the Millennium Falcon.
I know.
and-
No, that was too funny. At the beginning, this is another part of the beginning. She's like, whoever's, hey, Claude, turn up the boosters, Claude, or whatever. Claude is like,
Yeah, they just made some random CGI thing. Yeah.
some random slug attached to the wall, like that was the prototype for Jabba Fett. That was another
So-
kind of funny.
Overall, how either rank the trilogies, right?
Right.
For us, or how do you feel as this being the close of the Skywalker saga, and did this series of movies, all 3 of them, have anything to really do with the freaking Skywalkers? Other than her taking the name, the Rise of who rose that was a Skywalker in there?
Yeah, I'd have to say
Who rose? Tell me who the...
among the trilogies, for me it goes chronologically. The oldest is the best, then the second one, then the third one. Just because of overall consistency.
That's
and
my
just
order.
How quality in general and how all that goes.
I would put the prequels beneath the new ones just because
Okay.
the prequels were hot garbage, but
There's things I like about them.
Visually,
though.
the new ones are amazing.
Amazing.
like,
Right.
these
The
are
Last
really
Jedi
nice.
The
looks
depth,
great.
it's almost like the most sparkly dog turd you can look at, though. You know,
I agree with that.
The difference, though, and the reason that I would have to put the prequels above is just because so many stories that you were interested in spawned out of those. Where there's nothing I care about moving forward. Now that this movie's over, we can just put this to bed and never have to deal with it again.
I think the with the prequels there was a bigger. It's like we keep talking about expectations. With these, the expectations were so low that I'm like, eh. Whereas the prequels, my expectations were much higher.
They were a lot of
so
people's
like a
were.
lot. And I
This
remember
was the first thing you were getting, you know,
'cause I
other
got
than the Thrawn books.
tickets to a pre-screening, so I was like in this little tiny theater watching it, you know. And I was so like I walked out of it and I'm like, this is the worst movie I've ever seen.
Which one, Phantom Menace?
Phantom Menace.
Yeah, I saw all of them in the theaters like the day they came out too.
And it's just baffling, like choices that were made in those movies that again like at least in these ones, I can rationalize some of it, and you get corporate influence and all this, but like with the prequels, it's just like, man, like because it's a new thing that's going around on the internet now, where people are starting to look back at the prequels with the rose-colored glasses. I'm like, nah, y'all need to go back and watch them. There are narrative issues. There's
there
George
definitely are.
claiming it's aimed at children, but then doing like 2 hours on political science and like tensions in the Senate. I'm like, yeah, that's aimed at children. George, come on, man.
I hate that for all the movies. There's none of these movies to me that like is aimed at children. I get it, like young children, like 12 up.
Except we forget, I think in our ageism, we get old and forget how old we were when we liked it the most. Now, I have to say, for me specifically, when Star Wars was most mysterious and exciting, you always want to air a mystery, especially as a kid. When it was most mysterious and exciting and awe-inspiring for me, was probably between the ages of 5 and 9. That's when the toys were selling like crazy, and it's just after the trilogy just ended, the original trilogy, and people are still just hungry, mid-80s, hungry for this. And that's when it appealed to me the most. I remember thinking about my action figures and how I was going to be able to get more of these discontinued action figures, and like how much of an adventure that was in its own, you know what I mean? And that's when I was most excited, and I was going back and watching those old VHSs as a 5, 6, 7, 8, 9-year-old every day, wearing those VHSs out. So I do think it was for kids in that way, where we forget, I think we really forget how young we were when we really loved it. Now, as far as the prequels,
That's great, right? Everything you just said there.
yeah,
But we are that group. You see the 4 people sitting around this table?
we're all from that.
Yeah, his wife running. Yeah, we all from that era. We
Yeah.
all love Star Wars. Why did they spend $4 billion to buy this from George Lucas?
For our
Because we
generation.
built this.
Yeah.
The people that made it worthwhile IP for them to buy at that price was because of us.
Yeah,
And
sure.
you're gonna bring your kids into it. And
You're gonna bring your kids and stuff like that, so you have to cater to us to a degree.
Sure.
And if you come over there and just basically give us a middle finger, and just call us all kinds of names like they
Right.
did after The Last Jedi, and then try and bring us back with this by placating us with a bunch of fan service, you know, with like the Raylo kiss, you know, like thank you for another awkward kiss.
It wasn't
In the
so
Star
bad.
Wars, no, that was
wasn't-
awkward.
it
That was
wasn't-
as awkward as Rose
You're
Tico.
talking about Kylo Ren.
And
I
Finn.
took me a bit to get to. I was like, Raylo. Who was Raylo?
I don't remember that one.
Yeah, that's the shippers. That's how they put it.
Well,
together.
honestly,
You know,
I would
there's-
say it's something that's missing from these new ones. Is like in the originals, you had a love story involved, wrapped in with the narrative, and this one, like, I don't care.
That's
like,
my least favorite part of the movie is
Like,
the
not a-
awkward fighting between Finn and Poe over Rey. Like either one of you is gonna do
Right.
anything. I don't.
See,
Y'all
I
should
never
just-
get the Poe thing. I'm always like, you know,
They should
it's just
just-
Finn
I'm
and
not-
Poe
yeah.
should be with whoever. You
Finn
know,
and
like,
Rey were supposed to be together, but I'm not fully convinced that either of these male protagonists is really interested in Rey,
Well,
and
they-
vice versa.
they
I'm
flipped
not
it, yeah.
fully convinced that she's interested in either. I kind of thought it was Finn, but then it's kind of no, I guess maybe not. And then they do the Kylo thing. Who again, Kylo for me is one of my biggest problems of the new trilogy. Is one of my biggest problems is the character, the actor, the way it was
They did a
set
really
out-
depowered Jason Solo.
Uh,
Like, you know, if you're going with the old, because he is a
Yeah, he
direct
was the-
rip-off of Jason Solo.
Yeah.
But Jason Solo was amazing. The journey that man went on in the EU compared to what Kylo did, you know, I mean, we just got a kid throwing fits all over the universe, raging across the galaxy.
being a threat to the power. To go back to what you're saying about like Finn and Rey, like the only reason why their dynamic existed was just so that just so they could flip that.
Yeah.
It didn't actually. There was no actual chemistry there.
Total red herring.
You think back like to the Force
it was
Awakens.
wasted red herring.
Yeah, well, because he's chasing her and he's trying to grab her hand. She's like, I don't know, you follow me. I don't like. Basically, the whole reason that dynamic existed was just so that they could flip it for the female character to be the one being like the strong lead as opposed to the male.
Well,
like,
you know what's
and so
interesting,
like the
in-
love story isn't there.
In Force Awakens, though, none of that bothers me.
There to be a
Like,
good movie, though, you know?
No, it doesn't have to be,
And
but
how
it's
about
something
this? Going
that
back to
people
something,
want.
Yeah.
something CJ said before too, or combining it with something else is that because 8 comes in there and mucks it all up, you really Force Awakens. There's a lot of stylistic stuff in there for all of its noticeable flaws. Force Awakens has a lot of stylistic stuff that I really like, and it did have the makings for what could have been a palatable romance between Finn and Rey, if that's what people want, or writers or whatever. But 8 messes that all up. And by 9, there's no way of salvaging that. Not for Finn, a Poe, a Kylo, or anybody else.
Well, at least JJ, I will say he did justice to Finn in this because I hated his character
In 8.
Like, and he was my favorite
Loved
character
him in
coming
7.
out of 7.
Loved him in
Yeah.
7. Hated him in 8. Yeah.
And then 8, they just completely resorted him back to the beginning of 7. And then by 9, you know, you get these little bits that, you know, he's force sensitive. You know, when Rey dies, he feels it. You
No,
know,
they
like,
definitely-
Yeah, so like
2 or 3
then
times.
explains why he was able to use the lightsaber in the first place. You know, because from what we know of the original stuff, like you had to be force sensitive to control a lightsaber. Not
Han
anybody.
used it.
Did he?
Han used it to cope with the Tauntaun.
Oh yeah, to open up. Yeah, that's
Yeah,
right.
yeah, but see, that's where those little holes are, or whatever. Throughout
Yeah.
See,
the
that's
whole
why,
thing.
like I don't care about because the lightsaber just again feels like a tool to me. So it's like yeah, you might not be good with it, but in the
Right.
same way that if you're not skilled with a blade, you can still pull it out and cut something. with it, you know, like I'm just not I'm not as married or invested in all that because I'm much more interested because you talk about the age we were when we got into this stuff. Like I would always say that I was a Darth Vader fan first before I was a Star Wars fan because his hero's arc, his hero's journey of redemption, that's the biggest thing that this movie actually irritates in me is the fact that Palpatine is for whatever reason, either he's cloning himself or like he revived himself or whatever. It invalidated Vader's sacrifice because it's like, you know, Vader killed himself to end that threat.
I heard an argument against this, and I'll just give it to you to
Sure.
see if you think it's valid or whatever. But
Yeah.
one of the guys was saying that it actually doesn't, based on the fact that Vader's sacrifice still gave a relative period of time of peace to the galaxy, where there was balance with the Force.
True.
You know, there was no side stronger or weaker, you know, at that point or whatever. And that there was a 40-year reign of peace before the First Order came back.
Okay. I
So,
mean, that's fair.
Like, and that there will always be, no matter what, because we think of what the EU expanded universe was, 35,000 years basically worth of Star Wars stories or something like that. There's always title ups and downs.
Sure.
You know,
You're gonna have, I guess, just the
somebody was
return,
bound to come back, find a holocron, and become a Darksider. you
but
know,
like the
and-
return
Yeah,
of the
40
exact
years is a
same.
long time of peace if
True.
you think about it.
Yeah, I mean, I thought it was a valid point. I totally am with you on that too. To me, it does kind of negate what he does. But
And they did say that, and I guess the prophecy of it is he was just supposed to bring balance to the Force.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Wasn't anything
actually, when he
supposed to
turned
actually
evil,
bring
that's
balance.
part of him achieving that.
Right.
Is him turning bad. Like that's actually, and a lot of the people who were fans of the OT and of older literature connected to the story were actually, I heard at a long time ago back in the day, saying, yeah, the balance he brought was when he turned into Darth Vader.
Sure.
That was his balance.
See, like, so that's what I was a fan. Like when I was
Yeah.
little, I was Darth Vader for Halloween every year. For
Okay.
like a decade. Like
Nice.
that's what I wanted to be. Like I loved him as a character. I loved him as like everything about him.
Yeah.
I thought he was the coolest. So like everything else about Star Wars came second.
Mm-hmm.
So when I look at these new ones, I'm looking for that level of connection with anyone. And everybody I look at, I'm like, well, you're also two-dimensional.
Yes.
So am I gonna, like, honestly, you talk about Kylo Ren. He's the closest thing to that connection I had.
I can't stand him.
Because his story is relatable. Like when I looked at him, like that's all the Star Wars fans.
Yeah.
Because he's idolizing Darth Vader's helmet. He's got all these things that he wants to be, but he's not. He's pretending to be in the mask. You know, and so like I felt like okay, that's at least that maybe that's J.J. Abrams slyly like kind of digging at Star Wars fandom a little bit,
that
maybe.
makes me even more mad. Because,
Sure, no,
you know what
I
I mean? Because
I
it's
completely
like,
understand. This is just a personal thing
Yeah,
for me.
yeah.
But that's the closest thing I had. Plus, I like Adam Driver as an actor.
Okay.
So like outside of these movies, so
Yeah.
then, so I'm like, well, at least in there, I've got some. Nope, it's all gone. No, that's we're just throwing it away.
And the snow clones.
That comes
snow
down.
clones.
The snow.
Snow
It looked
clones.
cool.
Oh
It
man,
looked really cool.
No,
Snow
the
clones.
place looked amazing. Like I'm
Yeah.
like, why didn't we just set the whole movie here? Why didn't we cut out everything that wasn't related to Palpatine? Set the whole movie like
You know where that
have the
was?
start
That
of
was
the movie,
nowhere. That's where that was.
Yeah, nowhere. You stand inside the giant head, but have the start of the movie be them flying into that dimension, and then the entire movie be them navigating. Like, slim down your cast.
Yeah.
You don't have Carrie Fisher anymore. Don't use B-roll from your last movie to try to salvage that. Just let her rest.
Even though it was clunky, I'll say it wasn't bad.
man,
But you know that all that was from The Force Awakens. All those scenes that they used, none of it was used from The Last Jedi. Damn, dude, like how much shit was cut out of The Force Awakens? It seems like that could have been a whole different movie.
Wow.
You know, like a whole training montage with, you know, Rey and Leia. I think that would have been pretty similar.
I actually
in
like
there.
that scene and don't mind the use of the aging, de-aging CG
Oh, when it's
or whatever
Luke
it is.
and
Oh
Leia.
yeah, I actually
I actually like
too.
that scene.
I didn't mind
it
it.
just all feels so. It felt so unnecessary. It just felt so like you could have had a well-crafted small story if you had your small cast of characters transition into an environment that's completely alien, then just have them fighting for their lives the whole time against, like, leading up to the confrontation with Palpatine, having the 5 or whatever of them drive that story. You get back to what made the originals special, where you're allowed to bond with have that character development, because then it's just like
I think I do agree with what you're saying and what you're getting at. I'm not convinced at, though, is whether the public at large or even the diehards specifically in great numbers would necessarily appreciate or respect that solution. And I think that something that both CJ and myself had said is that in our surprise at its not as terribleness as we'd thought, you have to wonder, could anyone have done a better job salvaging the train wreck that was
Well,
8?
That was the problem with this. He was doing
What else
from the
can you do?
beginning.
What else
There's
can you
so
do?
many things he
I
had
have
to try
to-
and take care of.
Yeah, I have to give him the old B of the D, because if at the end of the day, who else is going to do this? I think JJ
I mean,
was
there's
the
plenty
right.
of capable directors.
No,
that
I just
could've
mean,
did it.
yeah, but a third director. We're going to go 3 for this trilogy.
I would have loved to see what Colin Trevorrow.
I think we were good going back with JJ. I think it was a smart move, and I think he even does some Spielbergisms that I appreciated, like the little kind
100%,
like
yeah.
I like when it's the crew with Chewbacca and C-3PO and Poe and Finn and them. Like it wasn't too forced to me, and I know that people would think of it as forced, but the way I looked at it, I was like, no, this is necessary. They have to have this camaraderie. It's necessary for the overall feel of the film. And I think he gives a Lucasy, Spielbergy version of that, where much like The Mandalorian, I appreciate the stylized things. Although, albeit there's much less of them, and they're not all fan service. Some of them are, but things like that are not as easy to just bite into. And I think that he does a good job at some of those subtleties.
and that's fine. Like I'm not saying one way or the other, because again, like my specifics on the narrative is me personally talking, but like
Yeah.
I'm saying just pick one.
I would love that movie. I
'Cause, like,
agree with
right,
you.
just have
I
that.
just
Have your
don't
buddy
know.
cop drum, like Finn and Poe's, like their on-screen chemistry is great.
Yeah.
Have 2 hours of that.
Yeah.
Stop cramming all this other stuff in there, because like we're talking about the pacing earlier.
Yeah.
It's like thing done, and you don't have time to think about it. You just and then finally, like, oh, I guess we're done.
Yeah.
It's just too much.
And
Too
one
much.
big thing of positivity, Boba Fett.
What?
I love that guy, Boba Freck.
Oh, he's
Boba
great.
Freck, whatever his name is. Oh my!
But the guy goes,
God.
"Yay!"
Apparently, Disney didn't want to put him into the
He's
movie. I read an
incredible.
article on this because they thought that we were all gonna hate him because he was too much like Jar Jar Binks.
He's not. He's
literally
great.
nothing like Jar
he's
Jar
awesome. I love
He
him.
serves a purpose.
Yeah,
It's
he's
not like
very
Jar Jar
cool.
Binks.
He does that twice. He makes me so happy when he does it. He makes me so happy when he does that.
He's closer to Watto than.
Yeah, he's more like Watto, yeah.
Amazing, dude. I love that character.
I want to move on to just a few more things before we go. Clone Wars added addendum season 8. Is that 7. February 17th on
Disney Plus. So all you that are canceling your Disney Plus series, you might want to get it back.
Nice.
Because I mean, a lot of it's been released.
Excited? Are you excited about it?
Yes. Actually, I don't know how much of these stories that are part of it are going to be done, but you have Ahsoka and her battle with Darth Maul as the Mandalore, so he's like in control of Mandalore at that point or whatever, because he has the Darksaber and everything. It's her and Rex going and like taking over, and then I think there's an Anakin, Cad Bane, and something called the Bad Batch of like just these super powerful clone troopers that they're at the end they were trying to make like super clone troopers or whatever, like jacked up dudes and just like they're kind of crazy, but they went rogue or whatever. It's a pretty neat little story to go along with it, and they've been out for years. Like they never finished it because Disney bought it and they canceled Clone Wars like immediately or whatever. But they had
It was originally written.
It was written and they had the outline pixelated where it's just like arms and stuff like that. So they just kind of colored everything in or whatever. So that's been out for years.
That's
you can
cool.
see it. But yeah, I'm actually really excited about this to get the conclusion of the Clone Wars.
I'm a little excited, but I'm more excited about something you were telling me about Rebels.
Yeah, so
possibly.
there's a lot of rumors flying around right now that there is a Rebels spin-off show. They're talking about doing a Rebels spin-off
What do you
show.
think it's going to be?
To me, there's one thing, and I think it's what everybody wants who actually loves Rebels. I've stated on here that Rebels, up until The Mandalorian, was my favorite thing, maybe in Star Wars, period.
I loved Rebels.
Like, I love Rebels. The episodes that suck.
Yeah.
But the overall storyline of Rebels,
It's
where
the best
it
of the
ends,
cartoons, by far.
just crushed it.
Best of the cartoons.
So, spoiler alert, if you know what happens in Rebels, sorry,
Yeah.
once again, ruin it for you, but Ahsoka and Sabine go off into the unknown regions looking for Ezra and Thrawn, who just got teleported there by one of Danny's favorite characters in the Star Wars universe, the Purrgil.
Who is that?
The little space whales that you hate so much.
I hated them.
Yeah, you destroyed them after that episode. Stupid space whales, fucking little droid out there. It was. I can't even. I'm not even.
I
Gonna
don't even
butcher it.
remember this. Oh yeah, I kind of remember the space whales.
And then at the end, Ezra channels them, and they like grab a hold
yeah,
of
yeah,
Thrawn's
hated it.
ship, and they
Hated
just
it.
boom out
Oh,
in
yeah,
the unknown.
hated
Hated it
it.
so much you purge it from your memory.
Yeah.
Yeah, I forgot about that. And despite that, I do like that show, and I loved the ending.
So, which, as we know, if Ahsoka is speaking at the end of The Rise of Skywalker to Rey, she dead.
Right.
So I think you might actually get that, maybe. Like how that happens, like maybe getting Ezra away from Thrawn, somehow she dies or something like that, and that's how we now know that it happened. Because Filoni's gonna want to give her an awesome death.
I think he's also going to want to give Ezra a continuum.
Yeah.
Something to build on towards good
Do they
or
become
bad.
friends? Do they have to survive
Does he become
together
an
on some
antagonist?
crazy planet
Does he
with their
become
own
evil?
You know, I mean, I don't think they would go that way because
You don't think
so
so?
much time. Like he would have felled them all.
Oh,
I feel like.
they play with it a lot though. I feel like all that playing with it there's a reason for that.
Maybe.
I think he's meant to become a dark side user.
I always wanted it to be. I always wanted him to be the third evil in this new trilogy. Mm-hmm. Like,
Or at least jump back and forth, kind of.
because it was stated in the Force Awakens book or whatever that Kylo wasn't Snoke's first apprentice. And what if Ezra with Thrawn teleported out to basically where Snoke was? and they got a hold of him. He turned Ezra to the dark side, right? Thrawn is a general in the First Order. He's the one that organized all of this, you know.
Right.
It explains the resources. His Chist Empire helped with all that. And then by the time you get to the second and third movie, Ezra comes out of, you know, wherever he's been as a third, but he's left because Snoke and him
Right.
had a fallout, like apparently they did or whatever. So now almost it gives you a reason for Kylo to join up with Rey, because Ezra and his fleet, like the Sith fleet or whatever, is so powerful that I wanted that way more than what they ended up doing.
No, he just conjured it. Just made
Yeah.
it. Just conjured it.
Along with Jabba Fett.
Jabba Fett, man.
Actually, can I go back to something really
Yeah,
quick? 'Cause I
please,
read the
please,
fleet.
Carl, please.
The one thing I maybe laughed on the movie.
Yeah, I do have something for the fleet too. This is
The navigation tower.
Yeah.
Where I'm like, they're like, oh, they won't know which way is up or whatever, because they're trying to blow up that thing because they can't take off without the navigation tower.
Yeah.
Two things about it. One,
horrible callback
well,
to the trench run. Just
Right.
like how many dumb things can one empire do?
other ships enter and leave the atmosphere just fine.
Sure.
So why can't these?
Yeah.
Why wouldn't you build it on all your ships? But the other thing is, can't you just point your ship, like the planet behind you, and fly up? Do you really need a navigation thing? Just put the planet behind you and fly away from the ground. You'll get out of the atmosphere, bitch.
Well, it's never explained to you who's even flying these things.
How'd everybody get in there without the holocron stuff, without the GPS, without the Sith GPS?
Yeah, I love how that thing's not a holocron.
Isn't it a holocron?
It's not, but I
But
mean,
it looks like one, right?
Yeah,
It's
yeah,
supposed to be a
yeah.
holocron.
It's
They're
not.
sitting there like, oh, it's a holocron.
Yeah, but it's
Right from the
not.
top, but you know what I'm saying.
just a map.
Right at the beginning, I'm like, oh,
It's
you got
a
a Sith
hologram.
holocron.
Yeah, exactly. No.
But the
Sith
the-
GPS.
That dagger was the worst thing, though.
Yes.
And the way that it actually ended up being
That's right.
implemented later in the movie.
She used it like.
I really wish you would have seen the scene. It was the one
How
scene
would
you
you
went
know
to the
where to
bathroom.
I went to
stand?
the bathroom during
How?
this scene, but everybody on YouTube has shredded this scene.
It
It's
is
just like,
incredible.
I've heard it's either an ancient Sith dagger or Darth Vader's dagger. Either way, it doesn't make sense that she would have been standing there
in
and
the
lined
exact
it up.
spot.
And then like
40
had that,
years
like,
later.
basically the compass rose with the little red arrow on it.
How about this?
That's-
It's
that's
like
the thing
this.
that killed
CJ,
me.
stand still. Okay, the door is right behind you. Like that's literally what it says. What are you talking about?
And if
like the thing like curves into the
Right.
What? Who would have thought of that?
Movie of conveniences.
Tell you what,
And
and if you
what
look
is
at
it
look at the end of Return of the Jedi when the thing blows up, there's not enough of that wreckage left. Like, it atomizes when that thing explodes.
It does atomize.
Well, think
And it
about
was a ruin,
how she
not a
found
ruin,
it.
but it was already unfinished.
Like me and him were talking about how ridiculous is it when she finds it, right? So they're going through the desert in that scene or whatever. Their ship gets blown up. All three of them happen to land in this quicksand. I heard a guy call it marble quicksand, so I don't know if that has a word or whatever.
I think
So,
they said something.
so they think they're dying. They drop down. They're stumbling around in the dark. So luckily, that's the first coincidence, or convenience right there. They hit this thing. They fall down into it. This is John Campea, by the way, who said this, so I can't take any credit to it. They fall down into it. They're stumbling around in the dark. They find the body, right, of the guy, that just happened to fall in the same spot they did in this giant freaking desert, right? And then she's using her lightsaber and they're walking around and there's scrap metal everywhere. But they find a dagger that's beneath the sand. You see him pull it up out of the sand or whatever. And then you get the snake scene, which I don't mind her healing the snake. But luckily, the snake bumps the wall, and the wall falls down so they can get out and go along their mission.
All
You
of
know
that
what
is
I mean?
very Spielbergy, though, too. If you watch any Spielberg
No, it
movie,
felt
there's
much more
all
like
kinds.
Raiders of the Lost Ark.
There's
Yeah.
all kinds of unforeseeable.
Well, that's what he was trying to do with
impossible
the thing.
situations
It's like
that could have
Indiana
never
Jones.
happened
Yeah.
that Spielberg and Lucas have done in some of their best movies.
Have you seen JJ loves Spielberg, obviously.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
have you seen Super 8, his movie Super
Yeah,
8?
oh,
which
yeah.
is basically just an homage to
Uh-huh,
Spielberg.
definitely.
And again, that's what's great about JJ as a filmmaker.
His
It's fantastic.
stylizations.
Just
are
have someone
really
else write your story. Just have somebody else
Oh,
tell you
yeah.
how to get there, then you direct
You
it.
directed, yeah. And as we poke more holes in this movie than the Death Star did in Alderaan.
Well, okay.
Oh, see, you missed my good metaphor.
About the Sith fleet or whatever, because I was once again watching YouTube and somebody pointed it out or whatever, and I didn't quite catch it in the movie, but the ship that gets blown up, right, one of the Sith fleet or whatever with the new Death Star technology on the bottom, and everybody's got it or whatever.
Love it.
Right, so this football field long thing, right, that anybody can shoot. Like, if you're flying, any of these people can just fly. You watch a single A-wing go up there, fire one shot, it hits the cannon, and the whole damn thing blows up, dude. I mean, like, so literally every ship, this has to go to each one and just shoot one shot at this giant thing that you can't frickin' miss.
Right.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, who's gonna... After he had the Death Star debacle, you're telling me that Palpatine's gonna sit there for another, like, 40, 50 years and be like, alright, let's put some big things on there. This
One
is gonna-
glaring flaw.
Yeah.
It's gotta have. That's my callback,
That's
man.
my callback.
That's my trading. I
He
gotta
wants
have
them to
it.
have a chance.
Like, what is that? You know, like...
So, Travis, what are the rumors that we have for a next series on
So,
Disney Plus?
yeah, just before I came in here, this article popped up, and normally it's CBR.com, which I personally can't stand them. They're like one of the worst news sites ever, but who they are saying this is legitly credible, and they're generally right way more than they're wrong, which is makingstarwars.net. Like, I mean, if you like spoilers, go to those guys. They will let you know everything that's happening in the Star Wars universe. So rumor is the next Star Wars movie saga, because in the article explains it's not necessarily a trilogy, it's a series of movies. This is apparently what Benioff and Weiss were working on before they left for Netflix or whatever. Features young Yoda in the High Republic era, which I have never heard of. Like, and I have gone into so much of the EU universe, like, you know, deep dives into that. Read the books, you know, audio books, comic books, listened to all the YouTube channels, you know, like, I've never heard of the High Republic era.
I think it's just meant to say the high point of
The height of the Old Republic.
Yeah.
That's what
Okay,
I'm,
so it says, though not strict trilogy, once again, this is a CBR.com article. A new set of films will tie together and take place during the High Republic, a period 400 years before Luke's adventures.
That's good.
During this time, the Sith's infamous Rule of Two will be in effect, and we'll also see a younger version of Jedi Master Yoda. This was the DB and Weiss, Benioff and Weiss, or whatever.
going through his midlife crisis.
Yeah, getting a fast car.
That's what I want to see. Yeah. With the,
Yoda's midlife crisis.
Exactly. The
Nice.
open
I
button
like
shirt.
the movie to be called that.
Yoda's midlife crisis. A Star Wars story.
A Star Wars story.
But this brings me into the last thing they say, and this is something that you were saying to Danny that he brought up to me that I 100% agree with, and I would like to end, you know, I know we're getting to the end here, on this thought, and, you know, see what our viewers or listeners actually think about this. But due to Yoda's advanced age, setting a film just 400 years in the past allows a key character to stick around and be in his prime. And to me, and what I heard you say, and this is something I want to get to, Star Wars needs to get away from this era. It needs to either go forward or it needs to go backwards. They're never going forward, so let's go
Probably
backwards. There is a gold mine. I've never heard anybody ever say, I don't want an Old Republic story.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like, let's do this. Let's get away from these key characters, because every time you put one of these key characters in there, you know, you're going to get bitchy. Somebody's not going to be happy. You know, like, I mean,
Which you're
whether
bound to
it's-
get almost all the time anyway, but...
you make new characters that nobody has any tie into, you know, you bring back a Revan just for fan service, you put Keanu Reeves in the outfit, whatever you got to do, you know what I mean? Let's get it done. But, like, hearing this, I'm excited to go backwards.
Me too.
But then not Baby Yoda, but Yoda, you know, when he's like,
Adolescent Yoda?
yeah, he's like, you know, 400 years old at this
Right.
point or whatever. Like, I'm not excited about that. I don't need Yoda. Like,
Yeah, but he won't be... for some people, it's necessary for continuity and consistency. For some people, it's not necessary at all. For other people, I think like me, it's like, yeah, it's fine. fine. He can be in there. Let's just do Old Republic. It doesn't have to. It's not going to be all about him anyway.
The next series, right? So the Mandalorian's going to start tying in more to these movies, right? Because it's going to start buttressing up to the sequel trilogy, right? You get the Obi-Wan series, which after figuring out that it's Deborah Chow, who she
directed
did
some of our favorite episodes of the Mandalorian.
Yeah, episode 3 and 7, I think of that, which 3 is, I think, my favorite episode in all of it. I can't wait to see that Obi-Wan series with Ewan McGregor coming back. But once again, still in the same time period. Then the next show that we know that they're going to do is the Cassian Andor series.
Also same time period.
Same time period. It's slightly before Rogue One. We're going to see his time as being an Imperial and like what gets him to become a traitor and all that story no one cares about.
And the Obi-Wan story is what, right after Revenge of the Sith?
Yeah, it's going to be him on Tatooine, basically just what happens out there.
As Cassian Andor.
Well, so that's the question I have about that Obi-Wan series. Ewan's obviously aged, so are they going to take that naturally and have it be set
after Revenge of the Sith?
Well,
have to.
Or would they de-age him and try to do that level of like continuity, jumping right off of the Sith?
I think it's probably going to be closer to when Luke is getting more of age. I'm sure, they didn't show it in the movies, but I'm sure when he was like 10 or something, he was in the bathroom getting ready to brush his teeth and accidentally went to knock something over and caught it with the Force. What the hell is this? So I would assume as he awakens to the Force, maybe more threats come.
Which I say I'd have issue with that because the Luke farm boy, I like that so much more of him just being completely
naive,
duck out of water kind of because he falls into this and he's caught up in it and he doesn't understand about the Force until Obi-Wan tells him. So
well, there's also
we doesn't even know about it.
Exactly right, yeah.
He speculate because there's the line and what is it? It's either when does Obi-Wan die to Vader?
That's first the Star Wars.
Okay, this is the first one. All right,
it's New Hope.
There's a line where people have kind of twisted it, and I don't quite get it, but where Anakin or Vader says to him, "When I left you, I was what to learn."
Yeah, now I'm the master.
Or whatever, and I just took that as their battle on Mustafar or whatever.
Yeah, that's
when
exactly.
you left my ass, I'm chopped up and dead. Whatever.
Yeah.
But I guess you can take it in certain contexts that they met again. So you could have a series where Vader's trying to hunt him down. He's sending Inquisitors all around the galaxy. Maybe Obi-Wan's got to leave a couple times to go kill some Inquisitors, but then it gets Vader closer to him, and they fight on some other planet.
Possible.
Something like that.
I think that it's already in comics that they do bump into each other
I was
before
say.
that again.
Because you read all the
Because he
Vaders.
doesn't necessarily recognize him at first.
So he's hunting Jedi in that, so I mean, you'd only assume that he'd be hunting Obi-Wan during that period as well.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
but the problem you run into there is that you have narrative. You have what one of the bigger gripes with George about the prequels is that he kind of played fast and loose with timing as it was. So the original narrative was that Vader abandoned Obi-Wan, that he just left and he said, "I'm gonna go join the dark side." It wasn't the whole the whole "you're the chosen one" feeling of it was more developed later on.
Yeah.
So in that first movie, it was much more like master apprentice. He got seduced and left, and then Obi-Wan was bitter about it. He's like, "You betrayed and murdered your father." So they make him much more curmudgeon-y in that original, whereas kind of in retrospect, they've made him this much more monk, divine, all that sort of
indirectly linked to the fortunes and vicissitudes of Anakin.
Exactly. Right. Much more invested in it as opposed to just being he was a friend of
physically,
mine.
emotionally, and everything.
They're like brothers.
Right, exactly.
By the end of it.
What CJ? What series would you like to see from Star Wars universe? What would you like to see more than anything else as a series, as a running show?
As a running show, honestly, I'd like to see just kind of some washed up middle ground Jedi. Not even necessarily calling themselves Jedi, just the dude that can use the Force that wakes up and he whips out a death stick first thing in the morning. You know what I mean? Not the greatest.
That'd be awesome.
Human being, just,
that'd be awesome. Actually.
Like an inner city detective, maybe.
Yeah,
he's got some force so he can detect things.
Yeah. But he's not above being bad.
Right.
Almost like a bad lieutenant, not quite that bad.
On the mean streets of Coruscant.
Yeah, something like that.
I like that.
So you want a Sin City Star Wars crossover? That's what you're
something like you get You get Quentin Tarantino to do the dialogue, and
Amazing.
if you could have gotten Bruce Lee to do the fight scenes, that would have been the.
Nice.
So who would play your
awesome.
washed-up Jedi then?
I don't know. Who would be a good washed-up Jedi? You could have a couple people in there, you know.
Matthew McConaughey.
Matthew McConaughey. The Bane guy.
Oh yeah, he'd be great. Tom Hardy.
Oh, yeah.
yeah.
He's just got that washed up look about him. You know what
He's
I mean?
great.
Even though he's amazing.
He's
I love
amazing,
him.
yeah.
Well, I was thinking we already had Nick Nolte. You just get Gary Busey to play her.
Oh
washed-up Jedi.
God!
yeah,
You'd have to throw him in there somewhere, but then those people would have to deal with him on the set.
Exactly.
So.
You gotta save him for Quill's brother in
God.
season 2.
How'd you kill my brother?
He was the calm one. I'm the crazy.
I'm Wheel.
Wheel.
He
was a mechanic. I was an assassin.
That's too funny.
I dig it. I like that.
Karl, what about you? Series that you'd like to see?
Oh, easy, hands down. I want to see an R-rated Vader. I want to see.
Oh.
I want to see the comics in episodic form. That's what I want to see.
Wow, of the Vader comic, the Marvel Vader comic, the new one.
All of them, any of them.
Oh,
all of them. Like
nice.
his time from, because I think you and I are kind of flipped on our opinion because you like the newer series more than the first run of the Vader. Yeah. I like the first run better because it was more based in the original trilogy, but it doesn't matter.
If I was doing it, I would like. Have you read the new canon book? Oh man, Lords of the Sith, is it or whatever? It's Palpatine, and he's pissed.
Okay.
He's like, dude, I got this half machine, never gonna reach his potential. Can't even overthrow me. A little whiny about his wife, Vader, dude. So he like tests him, and he like throws him on a planet, and Vader damn near dies. Like he has to channel the Force and get all the way through it, and then they both end up like, no, that is the story. They both end up on the planet, and like Vader's got to protect him, even though he's pissed because like now his wife is dead. And that would be kind of an interesting little story because it really goes into what Vader's thinking because he's still kind of Anakin. Okay. You know, he's having a hard time like fully devoting himself. So it's a lot of inner dialogue.
Gotta hurry up and do that before
would
James
like to
Earl
see
Jones and Ian McDermott pass away.
Well, I mean, like I'll take that.
Especially
I'd
James
like
Earl Jones.
I
Both of
want
them are old.
Yeah.
Both of them are very old.
just get him to pre-record a whole bunch of
I
stuff.
was gonna say just
A bunch of lines.
Because really,
unlimited power.
just
Just start reading this dictionary, and that way later we can.
splice it together. Well, I mean, if you do it right, you do it correct, and because like in the comics, Vader's dialogue is very limited already. Like he's very matter of fact. He doesn't speak very much. But like there's a scene specifically where, and you'll remember this, where there's a uprising on a mining planet, right? And long story short, Vader comes in to put down the uprising, and he kills the monarchy that's seated there that led the uprising. And basically, nobody's the good guy in the scenario; they're all bad. But so Vader comes and kills him, and there's one daughter that stayed loyal to the Empire that he then puts in place of the ruler of the people. And he goes to his ship, and he gets out a chunk of Earth, and he comes back and he drops it on the ground in front of her, just the rock. And she goes, "What?" She's collapsed because her whole family's just been murdered, and she's just betrayed them all. So she's destitute. And she's sitting there, and Vader puts it there, and she's like, "What is this?" And he goes, "This is all that remains of Alderaan. So I want you to know what happens to people that disobey me, basically betray." And what I love about that is Vader took the time to get in his ship, fly out there, collect chunks of Earth that he presumably has a couple of that he keeps whenever he needs to make a point. So then he goes and I love that.
Well, he didn't actually even have to get it. That was the rock. That was the rock that hit Princess Leia when she was on Endor, and that little piece of Alderaan hit her. Boom. And he came there. He's like, "Get that real quick." And,
But see, like that.
finally over it.
I want that level of like, I'm down for that. If they do anything like that and it's handled appropriately.
I like that. I want something so far away from Star Wars that the lay people don't even know it's Star Wars. Like what the Alien franchise did with Prometheus. I want that. I want the rise and fall of the Rakatan Empire.
I knew you were going there because that's it. And it sets up the whole universe.
And it would be so.
It's so different that no one would even know what it is. Like, and if it was completely hated, is what it is.
And we could call it an even longer time ago in that same galaxy.
Like so long ago, they don't even remember and would
Yeah.
say it's a long, long time ago.
So long ago, nobody from the universe you think you know has any even recollection of this period of time.
The crawl could just be a scroll.
Yeah, exactly. It's just like
Or rolling up a scroll and you're reading it as it's getting rolled up.
That'd be great.
I love that.
Well, I mean, there weren't even lightsabers at that point. They were using still metal swords.
Swords, yeah. That's the story I want.
That'd be awesome. Would
Yeah.
you want it as a TV series or a movie series?
Either.
Because I think that would have to be almost both. It's
It
so
almost
deep.
feels like it could be a movie series, but I wouldn't be averse to it being a TV series too.
You can get more hours into a TV series.
Yeah.
And more details.
I would also, second choice would be the entire history of Vitiate, the Sith Emperor. His rise, his fall, it's a long period. He lived for a really long time. And was...
That would have to be 6 movies.
It would. And well, that's why maybe make it a series. But the whole how many different things he had to do with and different regimes and different Jedi and Sith that he was associated with in his time. Be a great
Yeah, 1,000-year reign or something
Right.
like that. And I mean, he originally started as a pure Sith
yeah,
under Marco Ragno,
right.
and then like ended up, like Vitiate, the emperor of the Infinite Empire is what they were, or whatever. He had his sons or whatever, and even before that, he was just known as the Sith Emperor, and then he's
Yeah.
the one that brought Revan and Malak to the dark
right.
side, so.
I mean,
His story is amazing.
any number of those stories, you can almost create like a Star Wars, Sith Wars level of series of whatever, books, movies, shows. You know
if you
what
just
I mean?
did his Vitiate timeline, you could shorten it a lot more, and it'd still be just amazing.
What was the one I created? Star Wars.
I was actually sitting here trying to remember it.
Do you know what I'm talking about?
Yeah, you
the
came up with one. On the first
it was about
episode.
Star Wars. The Chancellor Wars, right? Star Wars Chancellor Wars.
Chancellor War.
The Chancellor Valorum.
Yeah, we were talking about Valorum's election.
Do you know what I'm talking about,
Turned
Travis?
into Bibble's Bible.
Bibbles Bible, there it
Oh
is.
yeah,
That was
that's the other one. But there was another one I had.
Yeah,
I
that
guess
was
it was
Chancellor Wars.
Chancellor Wars. Star Wars Chancellor Wars. Where it's like just getting into the nitty gritty of the deep political science and it was just all it was all just high-powered lawyers.
Yeah, what kids like.
the stuff the kids like. Yeah, amazing. Chancellor Valorum has a lot of paperwork. To
You really should. Well, yeah, you should do. We should
My inbox.
mock up a campaign ad for him and have you record
Yes.
I'm Chancellor Valorum and I approve this
Oh
message.
my god, it'd be amazing.
Definitely.
You show his election time is like season 2,
Exactly.
his campaign office and everything, people running around.
So funny.
Hey man, if you structure it like House of Cards or something, people would eat
That's
it
what I
up.
mean, like House of Cards, do
Yeah.
something like that. So funny.
People would eat it up.
Fellas, this has been the best Sith and Synth ever. I want to thank CJ Bruner, Travis Thigpen, Mr. Karl Cerny, and Sarah for running the controls back there.
Happy New Year to everybody.
Happy New Year to everybody, and I just want to say on behalf of everybody here, thank you for checking us out. You can subscribe to our YouTube channel, Danny on Everything. You can go to DannyOnEverything.com or MooseMagnificat.com. Subscribe, donate, help us out, support if you like this content. We'll be back next month with some brand new content. We hope you enjoyed it all. My name is Danny Bedrosi, and you have been experiencing Danny